I'm here at the Filmfest Hamburg, and my guest today is Zinnini Elkington, the writer and director of Second Victims. Before we dive deeper into the film, can you tell our viewers just a little bit what the film is about?
Yes, the film is about a very skilled doctor who has very high standards for herself, and we follow her on a shift where she may not make a medical misjudgment, and we follow how the consequences ripple through the hospital.
Yeah. You're coming from a medical family, is that where the idea from the film comes from?
Yes, sort of. My mother works as a biochemist at one of the big hospitals. So when I was a kid and I forgot my lunch pack, I would go to my mother's job and have lunch in the canteen at the hospital. And my grandmother worked as a doctor's secretary. So when we were going to her house in the weekends, they would drop us off at the hospital, and then I would sit underneath the desks and listen to all the doctor secretaries. They talk before they went on their weekends. So I basically grew up in a family, and my great granddad was a doctor practitioner in his own, but that was when I was a kid. He was retired, but he was also a doctor. So I've spent a lot of time in hospitals as a kid. And then my sister graduated from medical school in 2020, I think. And she started sharing her stories. And I was very moved, but also quite baffled of how intense stories she experienced on an everyday basis, and how big dilemmas she was facing at her job every day, and how much responsibility she had for real human beings' life. So that was when I was like, I need to make something that's portraying the human being behind the scrub. That was the starting point. But I didn't know what the theme or the story was. But then I came across this term called second victims, or the andet offer in Danish, which describes the psychological trauma the healthcare staff experiences with something very traumatic, or something that shouldn't have happened happens. That the first victim is the patient, but the second victim is actually the whole circle around the tragedy, or the patient who gets affected. And I thought that was so interesting, because it's not the narrative that I have been presented in the media. It's very often very individualized when something like a flaw, like a medical misjudgment happens. It's very this doctor must have had, he's a horrible doctor, he's egocentric and arrogant, and he just did it for his own, blah, blah, blah. But this pointed to a more, to the fact that he's a real human being, who obviously, if you spend your entire life trying to save lives, obviously it is the worst thing that can happen when you fail. So that was
absolutely. What are your hopes that people will walk away with after seeing the film?
Yeah, I hope, for me, I would like people to have a conversation afterwards about acknowledging that we are all just humans. We all make mistakes. And this is also within ourselves. It's my perspective is that in order to forgive other people making mistakes, we first of all have to accept it within ourselves that we are also flawed and filled with dark sides that we wish weren't there. But we need to be better at the self-acceptance, because then we can also accept when other people fail, because that's what brings us together. Is we're all human. It doesn't it's not our accomplishments that brings us together. It's actually the fallibility that's where we're all equal.
You're absolutely right. There's actually one scene where they talk about what happened and without trying to blame someone. But is that even possible in such a tense situation?
To place the blame, or
to not place the blame.
That's such an interesting question, because that's exactly my point. That for me, it's not the feelings that are the wrong thing in this world. Like I really empathize a lot with all the feelings that are present in these, like in the film and in these scenarios. I understand the rage, I understand the grief, I understand the frustration, I understand when the guilt becomes so heavy to bear that you want to toss it somewhere else. I think that is a very human response. I think that is it's very understandable to me. So I don't judge any of those feelings. I am much more about, these feelings are here, what are we going to do about it? Like, it's not the responsibility of the person getting angry or the doctor getting, like, so it's like, no, how do we as a society actually reflect on this? This is real, like, people, like, can we create spaces where they are allowed to be there? Because, or can we find a way that it doesn't become so intense that this rage, for instance, is passed on to the medical staff who's just doing their jobs?
Yeah.
How can we sort of embrace it and make room for this part of the human experience? Because it's not, for me, it's not wrong. Or how do we avoid it? Like, it's not avoidable. Like, if you lose your son, it's like you will probably have reactions in some way. So how do we brace ourselves? And like, how do we meet these like things with grace instead of with, you need to control yourself, you know?
But does it also mean that something in the medical system has to change?
Yeah, I'm always very, like, I'm not a politician. So I'm always like, I've made an observation. And to me, this is like almost like a collective wound I've presented. It's like, and it's more up to me, like, what do we do? Because this is not gonna go away. This is like actual people working around the hospitals who are suffering because there's no place for them to be like humans. It's patients who are suffering because the more pressure we put on the staff, the more likely they are to make misjudgments. So we will probably suffer as patients as well, because and also suffer from feeling disconnected from each other, feeling like we've been put up against each other. Whereas, like, to me, this whole film is actually about how deeply connected we are in this. That the reason we have doctors is because there are people who want to do good, and we're not like our like we're tangled, like our destinies are deeply intertwined. So it's not at us and them. It's like, no, we're here together. How do we actually?
Yeah, there have been many films dealing with that overstressing of the people working in the medical sector. For example, Late Shift by Peter Wolter last year, and also saw another film from Denmark, Home Sweet Home, last year, which is beautiful. By René Frege Petersen. Do you think or hope that films can make a change?
Yes, I hope. I also believe that it can make a change, and especially what kind of values do we, what do we value in our society, in our Western society? And for me, what all these ties all these things together is we have failed to put a proper value on taking care of each other, and empathy, and maybe even nature and water and air. These things that are crucial for existing. Being, somebody has to take care of you when you're born. Somebody has to take care of you when you're getting older or sick. This is the crucial thing, that we take care of each other. There's none of us who can go through life without somebody actually helping us, providing care. But we don't have any way to measure the worth of that work. And I think that is the bigger thing, and I think that is what I hope that we through storytelling and films can try to create an awakening to like, these are this is why we're miserable. We're so rich in the Western part of the world, but we're miserable. It's because the only thing we put value into are the things that we can sell and buy. It's like, that doesn't really mean anything unless, like, what means something is taking care of each other, water, air.
Absolutely. In the opening sequence, the camera is right up close to the characters with wild pans and it impressively transfers the character's difficult situation onto the viewer. So how did you develop this style with your DOP, Mia, my big suit?
Yeah, that's right. How do we? I like, for me, I like to work with contrast when I make films. So, and this film obviously has some thematic contrast that's like life and death and control, chaos, being in power, being powerless, being perfect, being flawed. This is like the obvious thematic, But I also like to put it in within the film, always having elements of control, elements of chaos. And because the script is so tight, because it takes place during one shift, so the time is tight. You can't go off the timeline. You have to follow, like, this is the time happening in this order. The lines, doctors don't improvise. So most of the time, none of the dialogue can be improvised. Trine Dyrham's character, she can improvise a little bit because she's playing pure emotions. But the rest of the cast, they couldn't improvise. So I was like, okay, how do we make sure that this film doesn't become dead, basically? Because we have so much control, and if we control it too much, you will crush it, and then it will become dead to me. So how can I bring life and this chaotic element into it? And that was when I realized, okay, the actors can't improvise, but the camera can, sort of. So we had this like idea that the camera was like someone observing her on a shift, like she had an intern that was observing her. So the camera is not allowed to know what happens before it happens. That was one rule we had. And then we also had this, that the camera would never do the same thing twice. So we didn't have, like for the dialogue scene, we didn't have like a shot list. We had more like a movement list. We had like, we placed, like we made like very controlled mise-en-scène where the actors stood and what they did and all the physical actions. But then Nehemiah was free to grasp, like be present in the now and just take whatever moment she captured. And was like free. And what it creates is when the camera is not fixed on one character at a time, and the actors, they don't know when they're being filmed, and that makes that everybody, including me as a director, because I can't just look at one frame and be like, okay, now this is what we're doing. The actors don't know when they're being filmed. So it creates an atmosphere where everybody are very present in the now, and nobody actually knows what's happening before it's happening. So everybody stays curious, alive, and also like a little bit on their toes. And to me, that brings life into something that, like for me, film is the best medium, but it's in such a great like danger of becoming a very dead medium and a very dead art form to me if we don't really carefully make sure that we bring life into it as directors. So that was how the whole way that it's filmed. And then there's like long shots in the beginning where she's following her around, and there's like a big, like a more tableau kind of long shot later on. But it all derived from this idea that we wanted it to be dynamic and we wanted it to possess the element of chaos because otherwise it wouldn't be present in this arena.
And I felt that.
Yeah, great.
You shot at Harlef Elf Hospital?
Yes, yes.
Which is, I think it's near Copenhagen.
Yes, it is.
And how is it possible? Because it's still a
Yeah.
running hospital.
Yeah, but this is why I love working with, again, I love working with opportunities and not fixed ideas. I love grabbing whatever's like is brought to me from the universe. And my dream scenario was that we could shoot at Herlev Hospital. But then sort of happens that it's the only way we can make the film because it's the only hospital in the greater Copenhagen region who has the space. Because they have a whole, like the whole 12th floor in their building of like 20 stores building was empty because they had just moved the ward down to a newer building. And they were like, it's empty now for the next 6 months, but then we're going to renovate it. So if you want to shoot it, it has to be now. And at this point, the script was written that I wanted a 360 degree set. So the only way I could do it was if I had the opportunity to shoot at an actual hospital because we didn't have the money to build a set because it's my first film, so we didn't have the money to do that kind of stuff. And then they were like, yeah, you can shoot it here, but you have to do it before February or something. So it was like, yeah, okay, let's just do it. So we had this whole floor for ourselves. And I think you can actually feel it in the film because some of the scenes where we are acting, I could almost feel it through the walls and the floors, and that right below us, this was happening for real people. These were like real emotions we were tapping into, like as if it was like a collective thing we were dealing with. It wasn't our own. It was like we were just projecting something that everybody feels, or that was like present right above us, and that was very powerful. And I actually still believe that when I watch the film, I can feel the intensity of the hospital surrounding it, like translate into the film.
Yeah, I felt that, indeed. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the hospital has a special color palette created by an artist called Paul Gannis. Yeah, what's so special about that, and how did you use that for the film?
Yeah, I wanted to, because I wanted to make something that wasn't the more generic way we've seen hospitals being portrayed. Because I was so interested in this paradox that this is the most clinical and objective and controlled spaces we have, but at the same time, this is where life and death is like most present and the most chaos. Like it's the biggest feelings, the darkest feelings. And I was like, I need that element to be present. And for me, like white walls and blue scrubs, it doesn't communicate that. It gives this false sense of control. And I wanted the opposite. I wanted to like have the emotions present in the frame all the time, even though the character doesn't show them. So to me, the colors became the chaos and the emotions. And like, for instance, every time she's alone, she's in a red room. Every time she has like small breaks, small cracks in her shell, she's alone in red rooms, because that's a reflection of her feelings and what's going on inside. And that on the outside she tries to be this clinical white scrub, but on the inside it's actually all these bright colors of feeling.
With the character played by Zinnini you bring something maternal into the story, yes, which is an incredibly important force.
Yeah.
So how did you develop this character?
Yeah, there was a big, it has went through quite a big development, because when you have a character that is experiencing such a traumatic loss, it's very difficult for her not to become a victim. So one of the things that we work, and also with Trine is a big, she's a big mentor for aspiring directors and actors, and she's always really good at paying it forward. So she was early on reading, like giving me notes on the script before she even said yes herself. She would just read it and go for a walk with me. And one of the things that I quite early became aware of was this: I need to give, like, she needs to be very strong in order for her to become an interesting opponent to the main character. So I needed, like, this character to be really strong in her motherhood, but also very resourceful, like knowing what she expects from the system. But also one of the things that we work with, and I think I told Trine this at some point, I was like, to me this character is like Mother Earth. It's intuition, it's like raw volcanic power, it's like rage, it's love, it's all these like huge things. It's like, this is Mother Earth way of dealing with stuff. It's very powerful and very raw, and that's like, she's just like, Mother Earth in this film. So she's pure emotion, where the doctors and the rest of the staff are more like in their logical, rational brain, where she's like this intuitive. She knows something is off. She's intuitive. She know, and there's this, and I don't think anyone has actually noticed, but there is this thing that I put in the character where she, the mother uses some words that Alex has said to someone else, but she hasn't said them to her. So she hears like her own words being like repeated, and she's like, have I said that to you? It like gets a little bit confused, and that's something where I was like playing a little bit with this mother character, that she's so in tune with other people and feelings that she can almost hear through walls. I think that's very interesting.
You worked as an actress on many films, and after some short films in the series, this is your feature film debut as a director.
Yeah.
So you had an amazing cast, including Trine Elkington.
Yeah.
And I would have been so nervous. So how did you deal with that pressure? Or didn't you feel any pressure?
No, but you know what? I would never bring anyone into my project that I don't have a good connection with. To me, it's always about actual like collaborations and me, like, because I like to, like I told, I like working with this element of chaos. Like, I'm controlling a lot. Like, I'm setting up. I use this like phrase that I'm setting up the playground. I brought like a sandbox and maybe some swings and maybe a slide and some toys lying around, and then I invite people in and I'm like, okay guys, what do you want to do with this? And then there's like, somebody will grab a shovel and start digging, and then somebody will be like, hey, I found a water pile, can I put water in the sandbox? I'm like, sure, didn't think of that, but that's an option. Like, inviting people in to be a part of like exploring. So I'm always looking for people who likes to work that way, because it requires that you're not a perfectionist. It requires that you're more like what do you call it, like Indiana Jones in the search of something in the jungle. And Trine is like that. She's an explorer. The rest of the cast, like Özlem plays the lead, she's an explorer. She's also a perfectionist, but she's like willing to let go of it and being challenged in it. But it requires like, so I always, we didn't have money for a casting director on this film, so I just casted it myself. Like, I just asked people that I was like, hey, you seem nice, let's have a coffee, and like did a few people did a few self-tape, but for the most part it was like people that I just met. I was like, I think this is right. I think we can work together.
That would have actually been my next question about the casting. So.
Yeah.
But I mostly think that having a budget, having limited time to shoot is mostly good for a film, because at some points you get creatively challenged.
Yes.
And but would you have done anything differently, just hypothetically speaking, if you had endless money, endless time, or would we still see the same film?
No, because I don't think I would, because I like that it is so compact, and I didn't make any like artistic compromises within the film that didn't, like, for me, serve a purpose. But that's also the beauty when you start working with letting go. I wrote an email out to the cast and crew before we went shooting, where I said, okay guys, we're shooting in like a week, and I just want us to be mindful that we don't make the same mistake as the main character in the script and think that we can be perfect. I don't want us to be perfect, I want us to be humans. I want us to embrace that. And the crazy thing is that when you tell people it's okay to make mistakes, I just want you to come in as you are. Some days you'll be great, some days you will fail, some days you'll hit yourself in the head because it wasn't like you wanted to be. But as soon as you sort of say that you don't want perfection, everything is perfect. It's like a magic spell, like nothing can go wrong when you put that lens on. Because then you're just present in the now and everything is on purpose. It's like, okay, it's raining today. This was supposed to be sunshine, but okay, but rain is, what can we do with rain? That's interesting. Then you can just like actually be present in what you're doing. And again, to me, that's what makes it fun to work with film, because we can control most of it. So actually just letting go of the stuff we can't, it's so liberating, and it makes it fun, and it keeps the art alive. It brings, that's why the actors are like great in this movie, if I have to say so. It's because they're allowed to be humans. I was just like, let's just see what happens. I don't have any, like, no, you have to cry, like, on this line, and you have to do like this, and then punch in. I was like, let's see what happens. I don't know. And you can do that if you spend the time working on the script. Then you can let go on set. That's wonderful.
I think it's perfect the way it is. I wouldn't change anything.
No, exactly. Yeah. And it's made out of the ideal of not being perfect. Isn't it great?
Wonderful, beautiful. Yeah. So now we have the German premiere. It was tonight, or was it yesterday?
It was last night, and it was amazing.
Was it?
It was, I've been so excited to find out how this movie translates to an international audience, because we've had such strong reactions in Denmark. And what this film created last night is that
normally in a Q&A people will raise their hands and ask me questions. But this film, what happened last night was people would raise their hand and just share their own stories. And this is still, it gives me chills every time I experience it. It's like, wow, I can't believe that like a film can create a room where maybe like 200 strangers all of a sudden feel like this is a safe space for me to share one of my biggest traumas or more personal stories. I feel like I can share it with everybody in this room. And that happened last night.
Wow.
That was
so beautiful.
That is so beautiful. It's still, and me and Trine is so experienced. She does like tons of these things, and every time it's like, even Trine, she gets like, she feels it. Like we're touched by it. It's like you can't like. It's so beautiful that it's in our like, in the flaws, in the grittiness of humanity. This is like, we're actually very connected in this. We all fear death. We all want control and have a hard time accepting that we don't have control. This is the part that brings us together, not like the stuff we're good at. Yeah.
I'm happy to hear that.
Yeah.
So let's wrap up our beautiful talk with just a quick look into the future. So is there anything on the horizon you can already talk about? What's coming next?
Yes, I'm actually developing 2 films right now. I like mixing genres. So one is a one-location film again, but taking place in 1902, about like an apartment for the first female academics. One of them is a doctor. So it's like the celebration meets Second Victims meets a period piece. I don't know what that will look like. But, yeah, and the other one is actually a sports film, which is weird because I've never done sports. But about the Danish handball player Anja Andersen, who actually played here in Bremen handball.
Yeah.
And it's about her a couple of years of her life, but it's more a psychological study of maybe how it is to be different in a team sport.
Sounds beautiful. I can't wait to see what's coming next. So thank you very much for the interview. Thank you very much for this beautiful, beautiful film. And I can't wait to see it again.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
You're
Such
welcome.
a pleasure.
Yeah. Likewise. Thank you.
Thank you. Wonderful. It's nice
that
to
was
have,
lovely.
Yeah, that's nice.